Much, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maika Sanderson. I am the Deputy Director for Public Health AmeriCorps. I'm so excited to be joining you all today to kick off our grantee exchange for July. Next slide, please, Steve. So as we are kind of gathering and coming into the room, I would love to just first of all, welcome you all to the Grantee Exchange, but also make sure that all of our participants here are engaging and connecting with one another. So as you're coming in, if you could just go ahead and use the chat function to enter your name, your title, what organization you represent, and let's go ahead and do an icebreaker. So the icebreaker that we have for today is when you're making your very favorite sandwich, do you prefer to use Miracle Whip, mayo, or mustard? I feel like the Miracle Whip mayo debate is pretty hardcore. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the responses come through in the chat. So in terms of today's agenda, if we can move forward to the next slide. And before I even dive into the agenda, I really want to remind us all about why we are gathered here today. What is the Grantee Exchange? What is its purpose and objective? So as you all know, the Public Health AmeriCorps program is a relatively new program in terms of grant opportunities that are offered by AmeriCorps, the agency. And as a result, as you're starting anything, you want to make sure that you're doing it to the very best of your ability and that you're really giving folks who are kind of participating in the program the opportunity to connect with one another and share promising and best practices. So we created the Grantee Exchange as a virtual space for our grantees to gather, to really have authentic, honest, candid conversations about the challenges that they're facing so that they may learn from one another. While we have some information about how to do these programs well, y'all are also the experts. You are in communities on the ground, getting the work done. And we want to make sure that those best practices and teachings and learnings that you're uncovering from different parts of the country can be shared across one another's organizations. So this is the space to do that. So periodically we host these grantee exchanges. We have a very specific topic that we talk about for the day because we want to make sure that we're being focused in our objectives. And when possible, we have a subject matter expert come on the call and also give us some best practices from their perspective. So for us today, we are going to be joined by one of our staff members from the Office of Communications and Marketing. So after the welcome, we will jump into small group discussion where we'll talk about marketing your PHA program and talking about successes and challenges, tools that you're making, how are you crafting your message to get it just right to reach your target audience in terms of attracting the appropriate individuals to be applying to your member opportunities. And then after we've had that 30-minute discussion, we're going to come back to the large group and we're going to do some sharing out and just hear what you all were talking about in those more intimate settings. So once we get through all of our kind of discussion and chats and maybe some questions that folks may have for one another, we're then going to dive into some communications best practices, which Emily Guerrero, from our marketing manager from AmeriCorps' Office of Communications and Marketing, is going to be sharing some of her tips and tricks and information that the agency has learned from doing this kind of work at kind of the high level over a couple of decades now. And then we'll open it up to some Q&A for you all to ask Emily questions, and then we'll close. So with that, I'm going to move us along in our agenda, and I feel like I need to, before I get into breaking us out into our groups, see what's going on in the chat. I want to say hello to Chelsea. Hi, Kayla. I'm seeing a lot of mayos, mayo only, one mustard, mayo. I'm on the mayo side of things too. So this is making me feel good. It looks like Miracle Whip is getting no love in the chat, but that's okay. Maybe those folks just didn't join us for today's call. But at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push us into breakout sessions. If we could advance to the next slide, since I've hit our call objectives already. We're going to break out into our rooms. There are going to be facilitators in your room, so fear not. You will have a leader to help kind of throw some questions out to the group and get the chat going. I am preparing you if you can like get ready to get yourselves off of video so that you can engage with the small group members that will be participating in the conversation. That would be really fantastic. So we'll be in breakouts for about 30 minutes. So at this time, I'm going to have Steve push us off into our breakout groups. And I think in terms of folks need closed captioning, it is recommended that you go to room 1. So if you get pushed in a room and you're like, oh, I need closed captioning, you may exit that room to then be placed into room 1. Or Steve, do you want people to put it in the chat? Tell me how you would like that to go.
They can put it in the chat or raise their hand, and I'll assign them to room 1 if they need closed captioning.
Awesome. So put it in the chat or use the raise hand feature to let Steve know if you need closed captioning, and he'll put you into room 1. But at this time, we're going to head into our breakout rooms. Thanks in advance, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so lovely to see faces this time around. I came back from, honestly, like truly, no exaggeration, like a really riveting, amazing conversation about how different grantee organizations are trying to frame the messaging of their member service opportunities, where they're seeing challenges, where they're seeing successes. I'm hoping that you all had a productive and fruitful conversation like we did in our room. I won't say our conversation was the best. We're all winners here, but we did really have a fantastic chat with one another. So what we'll do now, since we have a pretty jam-packed agenda, I want to go ahead and just make a little space for each room to report out literally 1 to 2 minutes, like high level learnings or things that were shared in your room. And I'm going to start with room 1, which I believe was led by Ashley. So Ashley, can you introduce your presenter and let them have it?
Yes. I don't think there is a presenter, so I could do it. Let me just go to my notes here.
Awesome.
All right. So I talked with Family Scholar House, which is part of Kentucky Health Corps, based in Kentucky, and they actually have a really great marketing strategy already in place, and it was really good conversation. I don't know if they want to speak about this, any of the Megans. They were all Megan in our on our group. So,
That's awesome. Do
'cause
we?
I feel a little weird talking about their program because they're doing a really good job with their marketing. So the biggest takeaway was they do a lot with their partners in the community. They work with either high school or higher education, and how they get in with the professors, the administrators, the guidance counselors, get buy-in from them, and use them as their advocates to these students to hand out their flyers, to talk about the program, and that's how they get a lot of buy-in from the students. So they also look at what programs are going to have a large need for members, and then they also recruit those people as well. So I think those were the biggest takeaways. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in, but I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Ashley. Megan's, anything to quickly add before we move on to the next room?
I will just add, Ashley, you did a great job. But I'll just add that as we've developed our marketing material, one of the things that we talked a lot about is how we kept updating it based on feedback we were getting on what resonates with the students and the faculty at these sites and what was confusing. And so just always taking feedback and going back and redeveloping the marketing material to fit the needs of our target audience has been key for us.
Amazing. Always refine. That's a good tip. Megan, I'm going to ask you in the chat, if you could just share maybe one way that you had to refine your messaging, I think that would be great. So if you could drop that in the chat for us.
Yeah,
Thanks
definitely.
in advance. Awesome. All right, let's skedaddle over to room 2, which was led by Manira. Manira, can you introduce your presenter, please?
Absolutely. Flagging that there was a little bit of a room number situation. So I think technically we're room 4, but I will share. I will share at this point. I'll just go ahead and try to give an overview, and our members can jump in, folks, if I am misrepresenting or haven't given the overall, please feel free to step in. But we had a great conversation. Folks were using all different types of really cool channels. Folks were using websites, Handshake, and merging with the AmeriCorps Handshake account came up as something that had been successful. Folks were doing a lot of work with community partners and getting them involved through stakeholder meetings, through giving them different promotional materials to really get people to share the message. And lastly, we had folks doing in-person events like stakeholder info sessions, county fairs. So really kind of hitting the in-person, online, and then through community partners to get the word out. In terms of materials, we had things like flyers, brochures, perhaps creating targeted brochures, plugging into city events, and again, really hitting kind of that mix of online and in person. And then in terms of specific messaging, our group also had really cool messages. So kind of highlighting Public Health AmeriCorps as a way to get into the nonprofit world, getting college credit, of course, but also highlighting benefits like, oh, this can count towards your years of service if you're looking to get your loans forgiveness. If you are looking perhaps to share your educational award, that's a promotion for perhaps people who are done with school, perhaps a little bit older. That's a cool benefit that has been highlighted for folks, and really targeting people who might be interested in their respective fields. So those were our highlights, and my group, please feel free to jump in if I've missed anything.
Anyone from Manira's group want to add a little spice to it?
No, you didn't miss anything. Everything was exactly how you explained it. And it was better because you had all the notes of everything that we spoke about. But no, everything was good, and it's mostly being specific of all the different approaches and all the benefits that AmeriCorps offers, that we're trying to make sure that we've set out there. That is not just this, it's different ways of specifically targeting the education and what field they're trying to be into, and just a way to bring them into this world. So it's a perfect way of doing it is through AmeriCorps.
Awesome. Thanks for that addition, Reina. I will just ask group 2, room 2, or let's just say the folks that were led by Manira, I love that you touched on in-person events. So whichever grantee organizations are doing in-person events, if you could just drop in the chat, like, what's the secret sauce to a successful AmeriCorps like event for marketing your program? Please put that in the chat so that we could all learn from that. While y'all do that, I'm going to ask Elizabeth's group to go ahead and report out. So Elizabeth, can you introduce your presenter, please?
Sorry. Okay, yeah. Presenting for us is Kayla Doyle. She works with the Cherry Health Public Health AmeriCorps program out of Michigan. So I'm going to pass it on to her. And if you need anything, let me know.
All right. So I feel like the theme that came out whenever we were talking was that value added component of Public Health AmeriCorps. So it was different strategies to really uncover what that is, whether that's working with a marketing firm to do focus groups with people who are in service, speaking with alumni, finding out what those things are, and then putting that out in our marketing material and using a marketing firm, if we can, to really use the experts to help us get our message out there. So really that value added experience and getting out there in the community, working the social media channels. And what I think I heard somebody say that I hear a lot of our members say is that we love service because it doesn't feel so much like a job. It feels like you can build your self-awareness, you can give back to the community, you can develop yourself. It just feels like you get to help day in and day out, and that's part of what makes AmeriCorps so special. So yeah, feel free to add anything. Those are my takeaways from the session.
That was perfect, Kayla. I got the pleasure of being with that group, so thank you. Our last room, Desiree, I'm not sure if we had enough folks to spread out to your room. So did you have folks in your room, and do you want to give your quick report out?
We did actually. I thought we had a full room.
Oh, great.
We had a good conversation. So sharing out for our group will be Paige Swem, and they are with the Ingham County Health Department. So Paige, I will pass it over to you and add if you need me to. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. So we talked about some unique marketing channels that haven't been mentioned before, is really relying on that host site to partner in recruitment through word of mouth. We've also talked about colleges, universities, and actually tabling at their cafeterias and really leaning on alumni groups for pushing out different opportunities. And then in terms of some innovative marketing materials, we talked about ChatGPT for coming up with those creative slogans so you don't have to sit at your computer and try to figure out what rhymes with AmeriCorps, doing different like internship models, offering service for credit as well, so partnering with universities. I know I only have a minute, so I think those are some of the highlights from our group.
No, that's amazing, Paige. Thank you. And oh my goodness, it's official. AI is now crossing into my work life. So that is a very good recommendation for folks to consider as a way to kind of boost their marketing efforts. I will ask that room 3. I heard some really great slogans that came out from focus groups. So if y'all want to drop one or two of your slogans, please go ahead and do so. And then folks from room 4, if you could go ahead and drop in the chat some of those innovative marketing tools that y'all were talking about that we might not have gotten too specific with, but go ahead and drop those in the chat so everyone can benefit from it. We're running a little late. Emily, forgive me. We are going to transition into our subject matter expert in just a moment, but I wanted to flag for folks that we have lots of notes. And so what I'll do is I'll work to share those out post this call so that everyone could kind of benefit from the further detail in terms of the notes that were taken during discussions. So without further ado, next slide, please. Of course, Amber, my pleasure. I'm going to pass it off to you, Emily. I'm so sorry I couldn't cut the discussion, but I'm going to pass it off to you in order to provide an overview of AmeriCorps marketing resources, some additional ways to think about like creating a marketing plan, profiling in a good way, understanding your target audience, and really building that robust marketing plan. So Emily, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Maika. For those of you who are attending some of the recruitment events as well, if you want a broader version of this training, we did an ASN one in June, so you can find that on our YouTube channel. But I'm going to go through this a little quickly to save us all a little bit of time. But hi, I'm Emily Guerrero. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the marketing manager for AmeriCorps' HQ Communications and Marketing Office, formerly known as OEA, or the Office of External Affairs. So I'm going to review a little bit of demographic information, resources that we have available, and recommended marketing channels. Next slide, please. First, if you haven't seen, AmeriCorps launched our Choose AmeriCorps PSA campaign in March. This has been the agency's most successful advertising campaign to date. And on our social press kit, you can find English and Spanish recruitment resources, and that includes customizable ads, social posts, grantee toolkits, and Canva links as well. Next slide. All right, so where can you find Public Health AmeriCorps assets? So we're working on a variety of assets to have available to everybody. This includes flyers, videos, postcards, and more. You can regularly check this bit.ly link here at the top. I will note that it is case sensitive, so please make sure you capitalize the PHA and the T. But inside of that, you'll see regular updates. We've got another update to this postcard coming out, and then a fact sheet on the way. Additionally, you can see any of the Choose AmeriCorps resources at the bit.ly below. And again, that is case sensitive, so please don't capitalize anything on that one. And then finally, we have our branded materials. So on the promote.americorps.gov, these are print and informational materials. They are free for you to order. The PHA order has not been fully updated into the warehouse system yet, but it will be up there by the middle of August. So please keep an eye out for that, and I'll make sure that Mike and her team are able to get an email out as well. And then the National Gear Store is where you can order branded clothing, swag, and things like that, and that is for purchase. Additionally, one thing that would be incredibly helpful to all of us is if you could check out the page. You go to AmeriCorps.gov/public health. There's a page that lists all of our grantee organizations as well as links to where people can go and apply. We're running ads to that page, so if your information is not up to date, please send that to publichealth@cns.gov. Next slide. All right, so I want to give you a little preview or look at what we've done for PHA in advertising thus far. So in January, Public Health AmeriCorps launched a specific campaign focused on recruitment and website traffic to our main pages. Here you can see some examples of our best ads. In summary, we've been running ads on a variety of platforms and seen the most success in LinkedIn in-mail and Google pay-per-click advertising. On this slide, you can see an example of our best performing in-mail ad. It looks like it comes from AJ Perlman. It runs as an ad, but it has been incredibly successful and driven a lot of traffic to the AmeriCorps website. Additionally, the PHA leadership team has participated in a very aggressive earned media and press plan, which has included dozens of interviews in major outlets, written pieces with or outlets like Forbes, satellite media tours, and we have more to come this fall. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to get into a little bit about our member demographics. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights some of the motivating factors behind national service based on an AmeriCorps study. Notable findings include that 7 in 10 Black adults deem it important to volunteer as an expression of their faith and values. That has been very important to us as we've separated out the language that we're using in different demographics and areas. And then additionally, we found that 2/3 of the youngest group surveyed viewed volunteering as an important option during a break from school or work. And that's been very well reflected in our applications for both Public Health AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps as a whole. We see a lot of gap years between undergrad and graduate school, or between community college and a four-year undergrad. Next slide. All right, so during our last message testing study, we found that appealing to the greater good and using you-centered language performed best. Additionally, emphasizing that others need an individual's help made our testing audiences feel empowered to make a difference. So our best performing language was, there are people out there who need you. And that really won by a landslide across all of our age demographics, regardless of generation. Next slide. I think I might be missing a slide. Is there one? Could you go back one? All right, we'll come back to it another time. I'll make sure it gets put in the PowerPoint that's sent out. There's a breakdown of the different platforms to use for different age audiences. It's broken down by Gen Z, Millennial, and then our Gen X and Boomer audiences. So we'll add that to the PowerPoint before it's sent out to the broader group. Could you skip ahead 2 slides for me? Perfect. So how do you get started without a budget? This is a question I get a lot, and there's a little bit more of an in-depth training on this that I did in June, the one that I mentioned earlier today. I highly recommend going and watching that one. There was some really great conversation with the state service commissions about that. But when you're trying to get started, there are a few affordable or free advertising options. We recommend that everybody have an email broadcast tool. These are just a couple of the ones that we've used across the federal government that also have nonprofit grant options so that you can get it free of charge or at a reduced cost. Additionally, making sure you have listing services like Google Business, Yelp, Volunteer Match, etc. really helps. We have found that our Gen X and our baby boomer audiences will find a lot of opportunities through people's Yelp and Google Business listings. And I thought that was interesting. A lot of people have thought that Yelp is dead, but it is alive and well. It's just with an older demographic. Additionally, there are advertising grants that you can apply for. So Google Ads and YouTube nonprofit program offer up to $10,000 a month for qualifying 501c3s. I highly recommend applying. I think they start you at a slightly smaller budget and they'll scale you up all the way to $10,000 a month. And for our service commissions, if those are used towards the PSA campaign, that also counts as matching fund for your grants. For graphic design, both Adobe Express and Canva have nonprofit free of charge options. Canva is an awesome choice. AmeriCorps uses a lot of Canva templates, and as our toolkits come out, we'll be providing more and more access to our existing templates so that you can take what we're designing and make it work for your brand. Additionally, reaching out for in-kind donations, using the toolkit pitch letter that is inside the Choose AmeriCorps toolkit. The link was on the second slide a bit ago. And then also making sure that you're keeping track of your analytics. Those are all incredibly important to a robust marketing plan. Next slide. All right, so just the next 2 are just some social media tips that I always love to throw out there. Collaborating with other organizations, we truly are better together. As you consider using social media platforms, we recommend that you network with this community on this call, as well as the broader AmeriCorps network, and collaborate on social media events, co-posts, lives, and things of that nature. We've found a significant increase in reach for all of our channels. Oftentimes there's a conception that when you collaborate together, you just double your reach, or you get, if I say I have 10,000 followers and you have 10,000, you would assume that together we're reaching 20,000. But our work over the last 2 years has shown that we often are reaching 3 or 4 times both channels' audiences. And so when we work together, we see a huge ROI. You can always participate in AmeriCorps hosted social media events. We do them for each day of service, AmeriCorps Week, National Volunteer Week, and I believe Earth Day as well. And we highly, highly recommend that you host some yourself, and please invite us. We would love to participate from the AmeriCorps channels. Next slide. Finally, we recommend using videos, graphics, and photos. As I mentioned before, Canva is a great platform, and you can get started with some of our templates if you're not really sure what you want to do yet. We've got things outlined for various age demographics as well as Spanish materials. On the prior side where I noted affordable platforms, there's also Adobe Express. We don't have templates available through that platform, but I believe some of the Canva templates can be downloaded and added to it. Stay tuned because we'll be launching our 30th toolkit this week, and that will have some more AmeriCorps materials that would be beneficial for everybody. But just as a high level tip, when you're creating graphics and photos, add your logo. It's really important, especially as we're struggling for brand awareness, not just for AmeriCorps, but for all of our nonprofits, community-based organizations, etc. Making sure everything is branded is incredibly important. Avoid too much text. We've found that the shorter or the fewer words that there are on a post, the better it does. That doesn't mean in the description, it just means on the image itself. Here's an example on this slide of a post that did incredibly well. It also was a collaborative post. It was a video using a Canva template, and it tagged and hashtagged quite a few different things that got it some really good pickup. We recommend sticking to one color palette for all of your channels, so whatever your brand deck dictates. You can always use the AmeriCorps colors as well, and use a variety of posed and candid shots. The best tip that I can give anybody on social media is that user-generated content is better than anything else. I know we all feel a sense of urgency to have the prettiest, most well-produced photos and videos out there, but everything that we've seen with especially the Gen Z audience shows that selfie view photos, selfie view videos outperform high-level expensive productions by 200%, almost all the way across the board. And so if you're worried that you don't have anyone on staff that can make things perfect, the good news is that you don't need to be perfect to do well on social media. That was a very, very quick run through of all of my slides. I'll make sure that I send the PHA team the link to the previous training that I've done as well, so you guys can have that.
I might want to unmute myself. Emily, thank you so very much. That was fantastic. Also, I had no idea that self-generated content performed that well and outpaced like the pretty beautiful stuff. Because I think in my mind, I'm like, oh, it must be perfect. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, right now there's a really low faith in institutions, just American institutions in general. And when things are too polished, it increases that like, I'm not sure, are they trying to sell me something? But really our selfie photos of our members, they just do so well.
Incredible. Love it. Thank you, Emily. We're so glad to have you here, and we're not letting you go just yet. We are going till 4:15. So at this point, I want to open this up to the group. Y'all, Emily shared a lot of really fantastic information with us, and I know that we went through it a little bit quickly. So here's our opportunity to kind of go back. We could go back to certain slides. If you have specific questions, Emily is here to answer them. So all I ask is that you just use the raise hand feature found at the bottom of the screen towards the middle under reactions, and we'll know that you want to ask a question. I'll call your name and then you can unmute and ask. So here's your opportunity. Any questions from the group for Emily? Oh man, folks are just like in awe of what you shared, Emily.
They're trying to digest a whole bunch of information thrown at them.
Totally. Well, then I would say then just to wrap us up, you've seen a lot of different campaigns at the national level. You've seen things that different grantee organizations have done. Ooh, Raina came. Raina, are you? Oh no. Okay. I got excited. Sorry. What would be, like your top tip, Emily. I'm new to this. I don't have a lot of time, but I want to attract people to my program. Where do I start? What's the very first thing you recommend that I do?
Oh, wow. Well, there are a lot of first places to start. Of course, if you don't have social, absolutely everybody needs them. If you don't have a subscription tool on your website with a regular newsletter, that's really important as well. But I would say that when it comes to the paid advertising, you don't need a huge budget. I get a lot of times like, oh, I don't have $1 million to spend. And the secret is that I also don't have $1 million to spend, but I've got a national footprint. And, I get told no a lot, but I do a lot of pitching. I make a lot of cold calls, constantly on the hunt to see who will give us something in kind, or who will bring a price down so that we're able to make it work with the AmeriCorps budget. And you'd be surprised by how many people are willing. A good example today, I got a bid from Disney actually, and they were willing to cut their prices nearly in half so that AmeriCorps could afford Disney and National Geographic advertising next year.
Wow.
So it's hard. I know it's sometimes an ego blow to make those calls or send those emails out, but even if you get one response back, it is well worth it.
That's actually a really great story for us, Emily, because even us, where we do have some brand recognition, we're also fighting for our lives, so to speak, with these mega marketing budgets, but picking up that phone and making the ask, you could get results if you just kind of put yourself out there. So I think in the context of our grantees, that might be calling the local newspaper, right? Local publications, seeing if there is an ad space that they let y'all do for free or at a very reduced price, given kind of that community connection and impacts for good. So that's a really good lesson and something for us to keep in mind. If there aren't any other questions, I'm going to, perhaps in conjunction with highlight a service project. Ebony, I didn't quite understand your chat, but if you have something to share, feel free to raise your hand. Happy to hand the floor to you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was just saying that perhaps if you're going to reach out to local folks, first highlighting the impact that members are having, and then if they're interested in that project, that might be, just a route to make them pay a little more attention and want to promote, future opportunities for members to serve.
I love it. That's a very good point, Ebony. Kind of giving them the hook of a story, right? And then it gives your project the opportunity to say, hey, you could join this project. Other people were looking to hire on for more positions. So that's a really good point, Ebony. I think oftentimes people will make asks and not think about how to sweeten the deal for the person that you're making the ask of. So if you can give that local newspaper a story, I think that makes it more likely that they'd be willing to accommodate your story or give you some free ad space. So that's a great point.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in inviting, media outlets or local advertising agencies, things like that, to come be a member for a day. We see a lot of success with that when Michael's out on the road. It's kind of hard to articulate the AmeriCorps mission and what we do, and there's so many different facets to our agency, and I know that that's true for so many of our grantees and sponsors, that being able to contextualize it and make it personal, really, it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Emily. Well, with that, I'm going to thank you, Emily, for your time. I'm going to advance us to the next slide so I could just go through some very brief closeouts. So again, thank you all for spending your time with us today. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation and the opportunity to connect with other grantees, marketing their programs, sharing their successes and challenges. I hope everyone was able to kind of take home another new nugget of truth and learning that they'll be able to apply to their program. I hope that the conversation does not stop today. Folks have shared email addresses in my group, at least. If you are looking to continue this conversation, go ahead and drop your email address in the chat so that folks can see that. Maybe y'all can make some connections and chat via email, set up follow-up phone calls to learn more about what one another is doing. We are going to be sending out a post-webinar survey. We want to make sure that we're refining these grantee exchanges to be what you want them to be and be fruitful for you and your work. So give us that feedback via the survey, or just feel free to email us at publichealth@americorps.gov. As we close out, I'm asking for folks, while you're dropping your email address to connect with one another, go ahead and let us know what the next topic should be for our upcoming grantee exchange. Should it be A, member onboarding? Should it be B, member retention strategies? C, incorporating apprenticeships into member service work? D, maximizing local partnerships? Should it be E, member management? And last but not least, perhaps you're interested in F, tracking performance measures. How do you do that? Which measures should you be tracking in addition to the ones that you told AmeriCorps you would be tracking? So go ahead and drop those letters in the chat as we are wrapping up. We want to do a topic that y'all want to hear about. And then a kind of a last message from our friends in the Office of Research and Evaluation. That's where Ashley actually hails from. We're grateful for her participation today. But we are putting together a member survey. So as members are completing their member service experience, we want to hear about it. We want to understand the impact on their public health career, how they see volunteer service, if they're going to be pursuing a public health career as a result of kind of participating in the program, as well as a host of other questions around training and support, etc. With all of that said, we want to make sure that this survey makes sense to a member. So we need some testers. So if you can let your members know that we're looking for a handful of testers, we're looking for about 9. It would be great. It's probably going to be about a 3-hour engagement. There might be kind of some an incentive there still to come, but we will be putting this in the upcoming grantee newsletter. So we would greatly appreciate you sharing it with your members so that we can have a few folks testing the survey. Yeah, time frame. All I know is that it's about 3 hours. I think it might be across like a week to 2 weeks, but Ebony, in that kind of blurb, we'll try to include those details in the grantee newsletter. And if they're not there, the evaluation team can provide follow-up there. So if you didn't tell me what you want to hear for the next grantee exchange, please drop a letter in the chat so I know. And this was a fantastic time. So I want to make sure to let everyone go at 4:15 as we promised. So with that, thank you everyone for your time. It was a pleasure. We'll send out the recording and the notes. Just make sure you fill out our survey so we can continue to serve you as best as we can. Thank you all. Have a great Monday.
Thanks so much. Take care.
No problem.